there, visitors. Welcome to the last evening of Spelbrekers, a four-part series of conversations about play in different domains of life, organized by De Buren, Flemish-Dutch House for Culture and Debate. And as you've heard, this time we'll have the conversation in English. I'm Fiep van Bodegom, writer, editor and critic and moderator for this series from Amsterdam. The Dutch historian Johan Huizinga argued in his book Homo Ludens from 1938 that play is the basis for all human culture. So far, we've discussed this idea with a very playful mathematician, Jean-Paul van Bendegem, climate scientist Valérie Trouet, and gender specialist Kautar Darmoni. Tonight, our guest is poet and writer Michael Foley. Michael Foley is a Northern-Irish writer who lives in London and has published poetry, fiction, and nonfiction. His latest nonfiction book, Isn't This Fun? Investigating the Serious Business of Enjoying Ourselves, is an anthropology of contemporary fun, investigating its various motivations and forms, including festivals, dancing, dressing up, comedy, transgressive sex, holidays, games, and play. And I'll begin with giving the word to Michael for his lovely talk.
Thank you, Fiep. To understand play, you should, of course, consult an expert. But no, not me, a 2-year-old child. I learned about play by watching my granddaughter paint. She would dip her brush in color, turn it around, lift it, hold it for a moment to make sure there were no drips, and bring it carefully to the paper and spread the paint in slow, voluptuous swirls. Then she would repeat this using the same color of paint and applying it in exactly the same place on the paper. So I would say, why not try a different color on a white part of the page? But she would not even hear me. Once again, dip, balance, swirl, dip, balance, swirl. She was totally absorbed and wrapped in the kind of transcendent trance masters work years to attain, the mindfulness people go on courses to learn. What I was trying to do was get her to produce a painting, an abstract Jackson Pollock that would impress her parents. But Mia was interested only in the act of painting, the process, not the product. She was not painting a picture. She was playing with paint. And she understood the true nature of play. So much of what we do is utilitarian, functional, to make money, build a career, find a sexual partner, stay healthy, look young. Everything must have a purpose. But the purpose of play is that it has no purpose, no benefit other than enjoying it for its own sake. To play is to revel in one's own potential, both mental and physical. Play is an expression of zest. Zest is the spirit of play. Of course, many would claim that play does indeed have a purpose, that young children play in order to learn skills, develop cognition, become social, and so on. Others, including me, would argue that these are accidental byproducts. Watch a young child walking along a street, or rather, not walking, but jumping, hopping, skipping, dancing, running, climbing on walls, or trying not to step on the pavement lines. Anything but purposeful walking. This is walk as play, a zestful awareness of being alive and full of energy and potential. Young children understand zest, but many adults have forgotten it. This is because the Western mindset has become dominated by instrumental rationality and the necessity of goal, plan, direction, and progress, what I call the tyranny of the project. For a mindset like this, play is childish and frivolous, a waste of valuable project time. This attitude is also responsible for the contemporary obsession with time, now the most frequently used noun in the English language. It's ironic that we are living longer and longer, but have less and less time. How did we become like this? A full answer would take a lot more than 10 minutes. The Enlightenment, with its worship of reason and mastery, was a major factor. And there's also the Christian legacy of a God with a purpose and goal for humankind, the man with a plan. All this makes it difficult to accept that down here on earth, heaven may be doing things just for the hell of it. It's worth remembering that the pre-Christian and non-Christian worldviews were very different. In some cases, based on the belief that the fundamental principle of the universe is play. As a pre-Socratic philosopher Heraclitus put it, the course of the world is a child at play. And according to Hindu mythology, the cosmos is not a train set built by God to run in fixed lines, but an accidental byproduct of the play of the divine absolute Brahman, and has no plan, purpose, or direction. The dance of Shiva created and sustains all matter, which is ceaseless rhythmic dynamic mutation. And reality is described by the term lila, meaning play or joy. Many contemporary physicists also understand matter at the quantum level as a shape-shifting dance, a kind of play. It's also worth remembering that animals play, and the more intelligent the animal, the more sophisticated the play. But the most intelligent animal, Homo sapiens, has largely rejected play. And a common human approach to animals has been to ignore their play and try to teach them human skills, make them learn for a reward of food. So rats have always been taught to navigate mazes. But recently, German researchers had the bright idea of encouraging rats to play. The game was the one children love, hide and seek, and the results were startling. Without any food reward, the rats quickly understood the roles of both hiding and seeking, and they loved it, uttering squeals of delight and doing jumps of joy. There's a video of this on YouTube, and watching these rats would probably be more inspiring than watching me. So much of what we do is function without meaning, but play is meaning without function. The lesson is obvious: play. But how? Play is usually associated with games, but games often involve competition. The purpose is the pleasure of winning. I can't even play games with my grandchildren without trying to win. There are many authentic forms of play. Sexual play is, of course, the most exciting, and creative play is almost as good. All creative activity is play, but the purest form of play may be dancing. Shiva's dance created the cosmos, and from the heart of the atom to the outermost galaxies, everything dances. At the fundamental level, matter is a mad dance of energy, and in space, galaxies and black holes spin. Cells and organisms also dance. The gut has its rhythm, the heart has its rhythm, the brain has its rhythm. The human body is a rhythm orchestra. So its most intense expression of itself is to move in rhythm. Every culture dances, and dance probably goes back to the Paleolithic age. One of my greatest regrets is that I mostly gave up dancing after my teenage years. But the lesson is not just to play games or dance, but to develop a play attitude in general, to enjoy activities for their own sake rather than some result. Instead of understanding play as function, turn function into play. Easier to preach than to practice, of course. I'm a product of the Western mindset, so I find it really difficult to play. But I try to adopt a play attitude on two levels. There is the philosophical approach of understanding the world as a mischievous dance of Shiva, a sort of cosmic joke that calls for a cosmic sense of humor. Understanding life as the comic novel of God. And there is the phenomenological approach of enjoying mundane activities for their own sake, for the sensual experience itself rather than the function. When I write in the morning, I begin by sharpening a pencil, the sort of task that we usually perform unconsciously. But I make it a three-stage ritual, a sacrament. First, the snug fit of the head in the sharpener. Second, the firm twist and crunchy engagement with the blade that makes the shaving spring out. And if it's especially satisfying if the pencil is polygonal, like this, and the shavings come off in an unbroken line, scallop edge rimmed with color like a flamenco dancer's dress. Third, the withdrawal of the head, reborn, no longer blunt and gray, but fragrant, with bright, fresh skin and a surgical point. Now it is ready to write, which of course should be another form of play.
Thank you so much, Michael. Before I start with my questions, we'll listen to a reaction on this talk by Maxime Garcia Diaz. Maxime Garcia Diaz is a poet based in Amsterdam. In 2019, she won the national competition for Poetry Slam, a competition that in the last few years launched the careers of the most exciting Dutch poets of the moment, both on stage and on paper. She writes about the internet, bodies, insects, and the revolutionary potential of the figure of the sad girl. We're going to listen to her pre-recorded reaction.
I was lonely, but I was having fun. And I refused to believe that there is nothing to be salvaged. There are at least two kinds of games. One could be called finite, the other infinite. A finite game is played for the purpose of winning, an infinite game for the purpose of continuing the play. Some child has to go to school. In game every morning a yellow bus came, waited outside the house, honked twice, disappeared into nothingness at the edge of the screen. I made a field out of chipboard, or very thick cardboard, and painted it to hide the old game. I created enemies and board effects, such as fires or floods, and laminated my field. I hollowed out the monitor until it was a carcass, and inside the carcass, I started the next game. The rules of an infinite game have a different status from those of a finite game. They are like the grammar of a living language, where those of a finite game are like the rules of debate. During the second game, I began to build worlds. The first world was my favorite. The second, my demise, or whatever. The third, my reincarnation. And with the fourth, I had a cold, distant, though cordial relationship. The fifth world was an actress pretending to be a world in order to learn how to be a world. Later, they would say I was cheating, that my worlds were made of castles in the sky, and that all that time, I'd actually just been sitting there, motionless. But it wasn't true. There was a world, colorful, playful, bloodless and grinning. There was a world, and it was a black mirror while you were sleeping, but it bloomed vampirically, grew to dizzying heights when I pressed the right button. Infinite players cannot say when their game began, nor do they care. They do not care for the reason that their game is not bounded by time. And what am I left with? Empty hands, right? While you were in math class, I was saving up for a baby paintbrush to give one of my Neopets the color baby. This was very important to me. Every morning I made a to-do list with daily goals that I planned to achieve on Neopets. Now I am very bad at math. When I booted up my game, it took 30 minutes to load, swollen with gigabytes and slowly unfolding its mammoth limbs like something ancient, when in fact it was something newborn, the great white hope of civilization, and it had only just opened its eyes, sclera as blue as the iris. So what happens to the game when it is encased in titanium, when its billion-dollar body is built for maximum profit? When it shakes off its siblings, their analog cardboard, and takes a shiny chrome step into the 21st century, where it is better, brighter, and harder than ever, and it has updated its arena, its stakes, and it stands before you, dreamlike and ruthless, and now it is so much smarter than you. It is also impossible to say in which world an infinite game is played, though there can be any number of worlds within an infinite game. What if it's not for realsies? What if you're not a writer but just play one on TV? What if you're just pretending? This is my imposter methodology. You know you're going to lose when you play chess against the computer. But I refuse to believe that there is nothing to be salvaged. That the story of the kid who played a video game for 8 hours a day can only ever be a tragedy. It's as much a tragedy as a fairy tale, the dark, old-school kind, where girls strike deals with the devil and lose themselves in the bargain, where children wander into foreign worlds that are equal parts beautiful and horrifying. I believe in that girl and that the things she liked and cared about so deeply are not trivial, or if they are, they're trivial in some magnificent way. And I think I'm right because she's grown now and writes poems about those trivialities, and those poems make money, so I guess even under capitalism in the end, none of it was worthless. And what is literature? Writing, reading, any art at all, if not another kind of game? This is how the last game began. Unofficially and not approved by anyone, with arcane rules and a demonic language. I'm sleepy now, and I can't remember any of the worlds. Flames lick the cardboard, and 3 sides of the dice have faded away. It is an invariable principle of all play, finite and infinite, that whoever plays freely. I refuse to believe that there is nothing to be salvaged. I know there's poison in the water, but I still love the Magic Kingdom. While you were in math class, I was playing games, inventing worlds, making up characters, deftly moving through virtual spaces. I was lonely, but I was having fun. I was growing crooked, but I was growing. Now I am really bad at math, good at fantasy, and I can type really, really fast.
That was Maxime's piece. If I was lonely, I was lonely, but I was having fun. And I think it's definitely worth watching again. And I think that will also be possible on the website later on. But I'll start with questions for you, Michael. Thank you so much for your talk, but also returning to the title of this poem we've just heard. In your book, you describe fun also as the glue that keeps groups together. So what is for you the difference between individual fun or collective play also, of course? And what is actually left of this collective idea of play during the pandemic? These are a lot of questions at once, actually.
Yes. Well, I didn't mention play in my talk didn't mention group play rather in my talk, because group activity is complicated. It involves a lot more than just play. It can involve security, belonging, solidarity, all those things. It can also be better than individual play if the activity is synchronized, as in team play, group dancing, and singing in choirs. It's a strange thing, synchronizing, because people have discovered that any synchronized activity doubles endorphin release. So something that's pleasurable on your own is twice as pleasurable if you're doing it in a synchronized group. And you get an extra sense of security and euphoria from the endorphin release. That's the good news. The bad news is that groups can be dominated by the needs and demands of the group, which can make the play and fun inauthentic, a pretense of play and fun, a pretense of enjoyment. This happens a lot with work fun and play with colleagues. Its purpose is often to demonstrate that you're working with a great bunch of fun people. And in fact, nobody's enjoying themselves, really. So you can have that kind of forced fun in a group, which isn't really fun. So the group situation is a lot more complicated. I would need a lot more than another 10 minutes to go into that fully.
But it does seem to be so. If you say that it's twice as much, or you produce twice as much endorphin if you play together instead of on your own, this would explain why a lot of people are quite sad and anxious on their own also at the moment.
Well, not necessarily, no, because you don't necessarily have to play in a group. You get half the endorphin release if you do it on your own. If you're playing on your own, at least you do get an endorphin release. May not be as good. And anyway, there's lots of other kinds of fun and play apart from synchronized activity. So I wouldn't be too depressed about that. Don't need a group. We haven't got groups now anyway, so we have to do with that.
So it's still possible to have fun and play. Maybe to go on, you write, so much of what we do is function without meaning, but play is meaning without function. The lesson is obvious, play. And instead of the function without meaning, you propose another kind of activity. To play is to revel in one's own potential, both mental and physical. Play is an expression of zest. Zest is the spirit of play. So what is this zest you're talking about? And also, do you have any suggestions for us how to learn to play in that way?
How to acquire zest? Well, yes, I love the idea of zest. And I would love to be blessed by zest. Young children have natural zest, but it's more difficult for adults. And I would like a kind of adult zest, which is not naive, but ironic, mischievous, skeptical, even a bit subversive. This is a zest that loves the world and is interested in everything, but takes nothing at its own valuation, and finds solemnity and self-importance especially ridiculous. The question is, how do we acquire zest like that? Of course, not easy. Most of the time, we're not feeling zestful at all, especially at the moment. But one of the things that the arts can do is give you a boost of zest. So I need zestful poetry, zestful music, zestful art, even zestful philosophy. There's not much of that around.
Maybe could you, because I'm not a native speaker, of course, what does zest actually mean?
Well, it's one of these things that's very, very hard to define. I wouldn't even attempt a definition. It's a combination of all the things that I've mentioned already. It's a combination. It's basically a form of delight, I suppose. If you want me to simplify it, it's a form of delight, but a sophisticated form of delight, which understands all the complications and difficulties and absurdities of the world, but nevertheless delights in all that at the same time.
That seems to be complicated to reach.
Yes, not easy to reach. Everything good is difficult to reach. Don't you know that by now?
Sometimes. I also forget. So maybe then to do it the other way around. So instead of, we might find fun in the things that are truly necessary instead of status driven. So you say it's fun is also, or play is doing things without function, but could we also do the things that are necessary with fun or with play, like tending gardens, taking care of people, taking care of children, household tasks? Does it also work the other way around?
Yes, yes, you can do menial things in a different way. I think the important thing is the sensual experience. We become totally visual. We see everything through our eyes. We're voyeurs, viewers all the time. So we forget about all the other senses, like touch, for instance, in particular. So to do simple actions, simple tasks in a different way by understanding them and enjoying them a bit more. For instance, after this program, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of these, put it on top of a bottle of wine. It's got a Henry Moore head and Audrey Hepburn arms. And when you turn the head, the arms rise up and the cork rises up in the middle like a buoyant heart. And it makes a lovely squeaky noise. So you can enjoy all that. Of course, the wine itself is very nice too, but actually opening the bottle is a wonderful rite, a ritual in itself. So all these simple things like sharpening a pencil, simple things like that, once you pay attention to them, can become more complex and richer.
Yes, I think we talked before, and I think you mentioned the word rumination.
Yes.
Wasn't it?
That's a bit different from meditation. The point of meditation, as far as I understand it, is to try to empty your mind and have nothing going on in your mind. But I find that impossible. So anyway, I'm not sure that's a good idea. So rumination is not to empty your mind at all, but just to let it wander wherever it wants to go. So in a way, you're letting your mind play by itself. You're saying, right, time off, you're not at work, go and play. And you just sit there and let your mind play.
And would doing these tasks with attention also, like doing these very banal everyday tasks with attention, also be a form of this rumination?
No, that's not really rumination. Rumination is entirely mental. It's allowing your mind to wander. But doing the ordinary tasks physically, that's not mental. It's using your senses to enjoy the experience and trying not to do everything through your eyes.
In your book, you also mentioned another thing that there was less in the talk, but which I found very interesting and also funny, that you had the suspicion that much of my aversion to fun was intellectual snobbery, and that had been confirmed. So could you tell us something more about this snobbery against fun? Because it seems to be hard.
Yes. Okay. I think everybody wants to be superior in some way or other. Everybody needs to feel superior somehow. So I think we're all snobs, really. And it's been discovered recently that even ants have a form of snobbery, which I thought was really wonderful. The ants who take out the rubbish ants, the rubbish disposal ants, are despised by all the other ants who avoid them. So there's snobbery even in ants. Everybody has a form of superiority or wants to be superior in some way. And fun has become a new way of feeling superior because everybody wants to have fun. So fun becomes a kind of wealth. So you want to flaunt your wealth. You want to show that you're fun rich. So you put yourself on social media with all these photographs and videos of yourself having fun, and people will admire you more if you do that. Fun is a wonderful new kind of snobbery because no one knows it's snobbery yet. So flaunting money and wealth and big cars and houses and all that is vulgar, but people don't realize that fun is actually another form of snobbery. Not yet, anyway.
So would you say the snobbery is to appreciate experience over material goods, or the snobbery is to think that if something is fun, it cannot be good?
No, fun can't be good, of course, but I'm saying that there's a false kind of fun where people pretend to have fun in order that other people will admire them for being fun rich. So it's not genuine fun often. Sometimes it is, but often not.
So it's showed off, but it is not maybe an authentic experience.
Not authentic fun, no, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so because I thought maybe I read it differently, that maybe people look down on fun as something that you do because you have too much time or not something meaningful to do, or in that sense that if something is fun to do, it cannot be meaningful or important.
Yes, but that's a different kind of snobbery. That is your genuine intellectual snobbery. Intellectual snobs regard fun as a vulgar, childish, frivolous thing, a waste of time. People who have fun are shallow people, silly people. That's a different kind of snobbery. As I said, there's all kinds of snobbery.
Okay, so this was not the kind of snobbery you had overcome by doing more research into play and fun.
Well, I try to overcome snobbery, but I don't entirely succeed. I'm still a bit of an intellectual snob, I have to admit, and I find it very hard to correct that.
I see. It's also so you describe in your book quite some hobbies and games and activities. I mean, people come up with all kinds of things. And we were talking about rumination earlier, but could also be just doing nothing. Maybe be fun. I often think it would be much better if people just did less of everything. Hobbies, work, anything. Just did less of it.
That's a great idea. You should promote that. Get into politics and promote that idea. It's a very old idea, of course. Some philosopher, I forget who said, I think maybe Pascal said, everything would be so much better if people just sat in their gardens and didn't do anything, which is probably true. Yes, I'm a great believer in doing nothing. In fact, rumination is only possible when you're doing nothing. Well, that's not entirely true. You can ruminate when you're pretending to be doing something. But basically, it's a solitary activity, yes. People should, spend more time just sitting and looking out the window, really.
So you just fully agree. We should all be doing less.
Less, absolutely. We are doing less, yes.
Yeah.
A lot of people have a problem with that. Again, that relates to what I was saying in the talk about the Western mindset. It's obsessed with projects and progress and goals and results, all these things which drive us on, and we're not really happy doing all that. So if we did less of all that, absolutely, I think we'd be much happier.
Yeah, so maybe this idea of perspective, you also describe in your talk the dance of Shiva, or not, sorry, I'm making the same mistake. You're not describing the dance itself, the idea of the dance of Shiva and the idea that the universe is a byproduct of this dance. And do you think that playing and having fun are not necessarily things that make one turn away from the world, but just the opposite, make us pay more attention to the world, and also, in a sense, to gain maybe a more healthy, irreverent perspective on the world?
Absolutely, yes. That was my idea of zest, was to be just like that, in fact, yes. Yes, I love the idea of the world being a sort of result of a mischievous dance, which has no direction or purpose. It's just Shiva enjoying himself. I love that idea. And the Christian version of it, of course, my version of that is that life is a comic novel of God. It's a similar idea.
And okay, because maybe I didn't want, you had some objections to the word advice, but I can see that you have thought a lot about play and fun. So what could we ourselves do to maybe gain this perspective or enjoy play more?
Well, at the moment, when we're all trapped in our homes, I think in order to avoid the sense of dreariness and sameness that comes from being stuck at home or just being able to walk around the block, what you can do is find ways to make the familiar more strange. And there's a lot of literature which can do this, and painting can do this as well. In particular, poetry, I think. I love poetry. And I love poems that take some familiar thing and make it appear new and strange. You think, oh my goodness, yes, that's what I know as a familiar thing, but now it's different. I can see it in a different way. If we use the arts in that way while we're confined to our homes become much more rich and full of treasures. It's not a dreary room you're stuck in. It's actually a palace of wonders. So the arts like that can be a great help, and they are a great help to me. I mean, I read a lot of poetry since I've been in lockdown for that very reason, to try and refresh everything and prevent me from getting bored and feeling dreary and jaded, all these things.
Reading and arts in general will help us to make the world strange again.
Yes, I think painting's the other thing too. I mean, I love still life painting. There are some wonderful painters who could paint very ordinary things, like vases, bottles, anything at all, a lamp on a table, and yet make it somehow strange and new, and you think, oh, I've never seen a lamp like that before. That lamps are more interesting than I ever thought. A bottle's more interesting than I ever thought. All these things.
Great. So actually, not much is needed to shift your perspective, as you explain it in the way you explain it, at least. Maybe also to return to Huizinga, you discuss Huizinga's Homo Ludens briefly in your book, and you state that he maybe a bit exaggerates the importance of play. Could you tell us more about that?
Yes. Huizinga's book is terrifically good, of course. It's a classic. And it's especially good in explaining that play is a form of freedom. It may even be the most pure form of freedom. It's not just freedom from domination by others, but freedom from domination by yourself. It's freedom from the tyranny of the project. So he explains all that very well. But where he goes too far, I think, is when he tries to claim that play is the motivation behind everything, all human activity. I mean, that's obviously not true for me. Lots of other things are involved in human activity. Human activity is very complex. This is a problem with thinkers often. When you get a big new idea, you think, hey, this is terrific. This explains everything, you know. So big ideas tend to want world domination. They want to explain everything, but they can't because the world's too complicated for that. And in particular, I think where he really, really goes too far is where he tries to claim that war is play. No. Killing people is not play. Definitely, at least not for me, no. So he goes too far there.
So is he maybe a bit too impressed with his own invention of what play could be, or?
Exactly, he got carried away by it. He thinks, oh, this is a great idea, it explains everything. But no, it doesn't. No single idea explains everything. We need a mix of different ideas.
That's a good rule of thumb. No single idea explains everything. I also have a question from Marie, I think. Why do you think fun is becoming a kind of snobbery, particularly in this time? So how has it become something to brag about? Could you say something about the historical?
That's an interesting question. How has this come about? Well, I suppose there are many reasons. One of them would be that everybody's always looking for a new kind of snobbery. They're looking for an alternative. You can't have the traditional forms of superiority, which are status, money, beauty. All these things are traditional. You can't have any of those. You have to come up with some other way of feeling superior. Like it could be being cool, terrifically, satirical about everything, or it could be showing yourself having fun. Maybe social media has been responsible for this because a lot of the pretend fun, the fake fun, the inauthentic fun is displayed on social media sites, I think. So the internet may have been a factor in allowing people to display the fun more than they would have before. Also, I think maybe too, fun has become more important in general. Authentic fun's become more important since probably the 1960s, 1970s. The whole cultural history involved there, which we probably haven't time to go into fully.
Well, you might say there are some things, I think, as free time for more people, maybe consumption also in very different way, both being cheaper and more readily available for more people.
Yes, that's another factor. That's a cultural factor. I think though the 1960s was a crucial decade. A lot of things changed and people began to reject the whole material view of life and to want a different way of doing things, but didn't really work out because 1960s, people thought all you had to do was sing, all you need is love and the world would change. It's not as simple as that. You have to make an effort to change the world. It doesn't happen automatically. And it didn't happen. The world didn't change. In fact, in many ways, it got worse. But the 60s mentality then moved into fun in a big way. And all the important kinds of fun really began in the 1970s. Individual dancing, disco music, special dance music, dressing up became hugely popular. Festivals became popular. Festivals are now everywhere. Endless festivals where people dress up and dance rhythmically. So many of the features of fun began in the 1970s.
And you also, in your book, visit quite some people who do things like this, like more investigating journalism. Did you also meet groups and activities in which in no way you could see the fun of it?
Yes. As I said, well, maybe I didn't say, but I should have said, because I'm a bit of an intellectual snob, I've never had much belief in fun. I've never been a fun person, really, I suppose you could say. So I do find a lot of it a bit bizarre. The dressing up thing in particular, I find really strange. And I went to, it was called cosplay now. There's a name for it. And it's huge. I didn't realize how huge it was until I investigated. And I went to one of these cosplay conferences. So it was a gigantic conference hall and full of young people dressed up. It seemed to me like all the young people in the world had dressed up and come to this place. It was really weird. And it was very difficult to get any of them to explain why they were doing it. And I would talk to people and they hated you actually questioning them about it, because part of fun is that you don't analyze it. You're not supposed to be doing being an anthropologist. Why am I doing it? Go away and take a photograph of me. What I want is for you to take a photograph of me and show I am having so much fun here and I've got this wonderful costume. So it was fascinating. I mean, I found it was really weird wandering around and all these people dressed up in all these different kinds of costumes. Also interesting to see what had changed. When I was young, the Wild West was a big thing. Everybody would dress up as cowboys and so on. But there were no cowboys at all. It was all vampires and especially zombies. Huge number of zombies. Zombies were the main way of dressing up. And I actually talked to a couple of zombies, but they didn't really explain why they were doing it. They got angry, they got irritated, with me. An old man asking stupid questions, but go away. So I never really found out why they're doing it. But the whole zombie thing is interesting. I could spend an hour talking about zombies, actually. It's another thing that fascinates me. Why have zombies in particular become popular?
Well, yeah, I could think of all kinds of cultural criticism that is in the figure of the zombie or the sad girl that
exactly, yes. There's a book in there written about the significance of zombies.
Yeah, definitely. And also I find it very interesting that you say that people who are having fun or going to actually quite great lengths to organize play and fun don't like to have it examined too closely by an outsider. That also spoils the fun, clearly.
Yes.
And maybe to wrap up, you end your text with saying that writing is another form of play. And I was wondering if you could tell more about that, because I also know quite some writers who find writing truly excruciating.
Well, the two things are not necessarily contradictory. Writing is a form of play, but it's a difficult form of play. It involves a lot of concentration and it doesn't always work. That's what makes it so frustrating. In particular, I think in writing, what you're trying to do, this is especially true of poetry, you're trying to associate things which don't normally go together and try to make them fit together into some kind of work which will interest people, surprise people. You're trying always to surprise people. I think poetry in particular is the art of surprise. And it's very difficult to produce surprises all the time like that. So it's frustrating, yes, but enormously gratifying, enormously rewarding when it works. So poetry is especially difficult, elusive. You can't sit down and write a poem in the morning. You have to wait for it to come, and it may not come for years, may never come again. You don't know. So it is possibly frustrating, but when it works, that makes it all worthwhile, I think.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I actually take from this a very counterintuitive advice, if I can call it that way, that all fun is quite hard work, or quite some effort at least.
Absolutely, yes. Fun can be more work than work.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you very much for your talk, and also people who want to know more about fun and also about cosplay, I think, and the zombies you talk to, should definitely read your book. And I'm looking for, isn't this fun, investigating the serious business of enjoying ourselves? And actually the title also says it, it's a serious business. I want to give the word now to Raymond and Marie, Raymond Muller and Marie Borremans. And they are, we're going to watch the last contribution for tonight. Actor, theater maker and writer Raymond Muller and writer and journalist Marie Borremans met during the Verwonderkamer, a stay-at-home residency organized by Explore the North, a festival and literary organization based up north in Leeuwarden and de Buren. During this residency, they were asked to make the unimaginable imaginable, quite a task, and they made an audio tour for a winter sleep walk. And we will start, that starts and ends in your bed. I give the word to Raymond and Marie.
Thank you, Fiep. Hello. So at first, we would like you to turn on your cameras. You don't have to say anything. You're going to be fine. But tonight we learned we double endorphin when we are in it together. So turn on your cameras, please. We, Marie and I, created a playful experience that is designed to make the familiar strange again. And we would like you to join us in this experience. So now make your room a little dark, turn off the lights, make it cozy, light a candle if you have one. And if you have headphones or earphones, we'd like you to plug them in for a better experience. Okay. I'm gonna dim my own lights now. That's pretty dark. Okie dokie.
Yeah, I think all the candles are lit. Mine is lit. Raymond and I, we thought during these times, and I'm sure we're not alone in this actually. During these times, we would rather hibernate, being like curled up in a hole, sleeping all day, like squirrels do, like mouses do. And then we would love to wake up in a new world, of course. So in this experience, we made a hibernation. We started it the 21st of December and we're planning to continue until the 21st of March. And tonight we invite you to join us in a mini hibernation with a mini version of it. What we did is we made an audio tour, a walk that you can listen to when you're in this half asleep, half awake state. And we did this because sleep for us is the only area where there's still room to play. And it's the only area where the necessity of goal, plan, direction, and control that Michael talked about has not yet taken over. When you sleep, everything is still possible and everything is allowed. And in our audio walk, you become, in a way, your own Brahman, and you start to imagine a new world, which might as well have been created by a playful accident. In the walk, we invite you to explore, to really go outside and to explore the boundaries of your own neighborhood. And you start to wonder, what is reality, what is fantasy? Because are you really sleeping? Are you awake? Maybe sleepingly awake, somewhere in between? You open all your senses and we want you to look again with fresh eyes at your neighborhood and at yourself, as if it's the first time. And we want you to wonder what you are actually experiencing.
And play for the time it takes. It is a walk without a goal or destination. It doesn't matter where you end up or how far you walk, if you walk at all, as long as you're in the moment, feeling free to play. Or as Mr. Foley said this evening, it has no purpose, no benefit other than enjoying it for its own sake. At the end of the walk, we asked the listener to call a phone number and share their experience. On our website, we keep a growing collection of all these thoughts and captured moments so that we never forget what it's like to play. You're now going to listen to a preview of our hibernation sleepwalk. And for the record, it starts in some sort of silence, breathing, just so you know. Okay, let's go.
Het is donker. Het is nacht. Winter. Je bent wakker. Waarschijnlijk ben je wakker. Je zou nu wakker kunnen zijn. Maar je zou ook kunnen slapen. Hoe kan je er zeker van zijn dat je wakker bent? Wrijf je vingers tegen elkaar. Ja, voel je ze warmer worden? De grond knerpt onder je voeten. Hier staan bomen. Kijk maar. Rechts van je staat een stevige eik. Hoor je de wind ruisen in zijn bladeren? Hij doet je denken aan een oud verhaal dat je vroeger werd verteld voor het slapen gaan. Herinner je het je nog? Het gaat over een man die met zijn dochter in een watermolen aan de rand van een bos woont. Het liefste wat de man doet, is hout snijden. Als hij ook maar een minuutje vrij heeft, pakt hij een stuk hout en begint erin te kerven. In de omgeving van de molen staan al lang geen bomen meer, want de man heeft ze allemaal omgehakt om uit hun takken katten, honden, apen en zeemeerminnen te snijden. Alleen een reusachtige eik die heel diep in de vallei groeit, staat nog overeind. Op een nacht gaat de man in het geheim met zijn scherpste bijl en zijn grootste zaag naar de boom en hakt hem om. Maar op het ogenblik dat hij door de kern van de boomstam hakt, hoort hij een zoemend stemmetje. Een beetje als het raspen van een zaag in hard hout. Sssst, we hebben iets wakker gemaakt. De weg terug is dezelfde, maar niets is ooit hetzelfde. Tijd slijt en tijd slijpt. Hoe kan je er zeker van zijn dat je slaapt? Loop verder. We gaan een tikje sneller nu. Heb je het nog niet koud? Wrijf maar in je handen. Blaas ze warm. Je loopt langs ondergesneeuwde bergrivieren. Langs bomen met kale takken waar je katten, honden, apen en zeemeerminnen in ziet. Je loopt voorbij een rijtje vervallen huizen. Een vrouw in een kamerjas verschijnt achter een van de ingegooide ramen. Ze legt haar vlakke hand tegen het overgebleven glas. Je denkt aan slaapwandelende holenberen die zacht en licht voorbij schuiven als pluisjes. Je loopt verder. Hoe zal de wereld eruit zien wanneer jij straks je ogen sluit? En wanneer je weer wakker wordt? Je weet niet wat er gaat gebeuren. Maakt dat je bang? Of vind je het net spannend?
Thank you. So to do the entire walk, go to our website winterslaapwandeling.nl.
Dank je Raymond Muller en dank je wel Marie. And I would like to thank all the guests of tonight, Michael Foley, Maxime Garcia Diaz, Raymond Muller and Marie Borremans. This was the last evening in this series, but you can listen to and watch the entire series and previous programs, of course, on the website of the Buren. Thank you for watching. Enjoy your evening and have a very playful sleep also. And hopefully till the next De Buren event.